Humans prove themselves in the ultimate galactic battle. Can Earth really lead the galaxy? The massive gleaming halls of the Alliance Council stood in stark contrast to the desolate landscapes of Earth. After centuries of isolation, Earth was about to take its first step into the galactic stage. Kara Drake, Earth's foremost warrior and representative, was to participate in the greatest trial of her life, a combat challenge meant to prove Earth's worth. The future of her planet rested on this moment. The air inside the council chamber was thick with tension as Kara stepped onto the cold metal floor. Her eyes dark as the void of space itself scanned the room. A faint hum resonated from the high-tech barriers surrounding the arena, their shimmering surface giving no hint of the battles fought in the past. In front of her, holographic displays blinked with unreadable alien script. It was clear that this was no ordinary challenge, and Kara could feel the weight of the universe pressing down on her. Standing at the far end of the room, Lucian Greystone, Earth's representative and tactician, observed the scene with a look of quiet resolve. His tall, lean figure was poised, though the sharpness in his eyes betrayed his mind working in overdrive. He was confident, but the stakes were high. His voice, calm and measured, was a stark contrast to the brewing storm of emotions in Kara's chest. "Kara!" Lucian spoke softly, his voice carrying through the hum of the chamber. "Remember, this isn't just a test of strength. It's a test of strategy, of character. Do not let them provoke you into anything rash." Kara gave a small nod, adjusting the weight of her combat armor. The sleek black suit was both a symbol of Earth's technology and a second skin that melded to her body perfectly. At 1.75 meters tall, her lithe form was powerful, yet agile, designed for both offense and defense. Her long black hair was pulled back tightly, and her face, typically calm and collected, was a mask of focused determination. "Understood," she replied curtly, her voice laced with the steely calm that had been cultivated through years of rigorous training. Before her, a shimmering gate flickered into existence, and through it a hulking figure emerged, Torak. From the Varkan Dominion, one of the most feared empires in the galaxy, Torak was everything Kara had been prepared for. He stood nearly 3 meters tall, his broad chest swelling with muscle and power. His green, scaly skin glistened under the harsh light, and his sharp tusks protruded menacingly from his lower jaw. His eyes, yellow and predatory, locked onto Kara with an intensity that seemed to pierce straight through her. The tension in the room escalated. Kara and Torak exchanged a brief glance. His smirk was palpable, but there was something else in his eyes: respect. In a battle like this, strength meant everything, and Torak respected that. But Kara wasn't just any warrior. She was humanity's champion, and she would not falter. The commanding officer of the Alliance stepped forward, a tall, robed figure with flowing silver hair. His voice echoed across the chamber, calling the beginning of the trial. "This is a challenge not only of strength, but of will. Torak of the Varkan Dominion, your opponent is Kara Drake, champion of Earth. Fight well, for your victory will decide Earth's place in the Alliance." As the proclamation echoed in the chamber, Kara's eyes flicked to Lucian once more. His expression remained unreadable, but his words lingered in her mind. "Stay sharp." With a sudden movement, the ground beneath their feet rumbled as the arena shifted. A circular platform rose from the ground, and the combatants were thrust into the center of the space around them, shrinking as an invisible barrier sealed them in. The combat zone was about to become a proving ground for humanity's future. Torak roared, his deep voice reverberating through the chamber. The sound was primal, a war cry that would have rattled lesser warriors. Kara remained silent, her expression never changing. Her breath was steady, and she could feel the pulse of adrenaline surging in her veins. She had been trained for moments like this. Without warning, Torak charged. His massive fists, each larger than Kara's entire torso, slammed into the ground with the force of a meteor strike. Kara's reflexes kicked in immediately. She rolled to the side, narrowly avoiding the crushing blow. Her movements were fluid, honed through years of practice, but there was no time to waste. She needed to outthink him, not just outfight him. "That all you've got?" she muttered under her breath, her eyes scanning Torak's movements, looking for the slightest weakness. Torak, furious at her evasion, spun and lunged again, but this time Kara was prepared. She used her agility to leap over him, twisting in the air to land behind him with the grace of a panther. In one swift motion, she drew her energy blade, the weapon humming with power as it extended. The blade glowed a brilliant blue cutting through the air as she took her stance. Torak grinned, his sharp teeth gleaming. Impressive human, but not enough. He swung his massive arm, aiming to crush her in one blow. Kara, however, was faster. She ducked low, rolling to the side, and striking at his legs, slicing through the tendons with a quick swipe of the blade. Torak howled in pain, stumbling slightly, but his massive frame remained upright. He was relentless, and this fight was far from over. Kara didn't flinch. She wasn't just fighting for herself, for her own glory. She was fighting for Earth, for humanity's place in the galaxy. This was about more than just victory. It was about sending a message that Earth was not to be underestimated. In a flurry of strikes, Kara pressed on, using her speed to her advantage. She struck again, this time aiming for his throat, her blade connecting with a sharp crack. Torak roared once more, his blood splattering onto the arena floor. But the fight wasn't over yet. The alien warrior, though weakened, was far from finished. He swung around, his eyes burning with fury, and locked his gaze onto Kara. "Earth will not win this battle," he snarled, his voice shaking the air around them. Kara's eyes narrowed. She could hear Lucian's voice in her head. "Strategy, Kara. Keep your head clear. You can do this." It was in that moment that she realized the key to defeating Torak wasn't in brute strength. It was in outsmarting him, taking him by surprise. She feigned a retreat, luring him into a trap. Torak, too confident in his power, charged recklessly, and that's when Kara struck. She sidestepped once again, her energy blade plunging into the weak spot in his armor. The massive warrior crumpled, his breath labored, his once immense strength now depleted. Torak hit the ground with a thud. The arena fell silent, all eyes on Kara. She stood over him, her chest heaving with exertion, her expression unreadable. She had won. But as she glanced at the other representatives in the stands, she knew this victory came with a price. It wasn't just about defeating Torak, it was about what came next. The council members murmured among themselves, their expressions unreadable. The Varkan Dominion was a powerful force, and the loss of their champion would not be taken lightly. Kara's victory, though decisive, had already begun to stir the political currents of the alliance. Some would respect her, while others would view her victory with suspicion. Kara stepped back as the arena floor shifted again, signaling the end of the trial. Her heart pounded in her chest, but the adrenaline was beginning to fade. She had done it, but the real challenge was just beginning. Lucian's voice came through her earpiece, calm and composed as ever. "Well done, Kara. But this was only the first test. Stay vigilant. There will be more." The weight of his words hung heavy in the air. Kara didn't speak. She simply nodded. The future of Earth had just begun, but it was clear now that the path would not be easy. The arena's atmosphere was electric, alive with the anticipation of a fight that would decide the fate of Earth's standing in the galactic community. Kara Drake, standing at the center of the combat zone, was acutely aware of the eyes that watched her from above. The hundreds of representatives from the many alien empires filled the bleachers, their gazes fixed upon the two combatants. The alien atmosphere felt thick, heavy with the weight of history. This would be a test of not just strength, but character. Before her stood Torak. The Varkan Dominion's champion was a massive figure towering at nearly 3 meters. His body, built like an apex predator's, rippled with muscles that looked like they could tear through steel. His green reptilian skin shimmered under the harsh lights, the jagged scales running down his arms and legs, catching the light like shards of glass. His eyes, yellow and filled with the primal hunger of a predator, were fixed on Kara. There was respect in them, but also a predatory gleam. He underestimated her. He believed that his strength alone would be enough to crush her. Kara, on the other hand, stood still. Her chest rose and fell with controlled breath. Her combat suit was sleek and black, the material designed to enhance her mobility while providing maximum protection. The energy blade she carried was a weight she was used to now, and her mind was focused. She had trained for years, had fought countless battles, but this was different. This was for her planet, her people, her home. The moment of silence stretched between them before the signal came. A flash of light. The combat had begun. Torak immediately charged his feet, pounding against the ground with the force of a battering ram. His roar was guttural, a sound meant to intimidate. As he closed in, Kara's eyes narrowed. She was fast, agile, and she knew that in a battle like this, it wouldn't be enough to match brute force with brute force. Torak swung a massive fist aimed directly at her head, and for a moment Kara allowed herself to feel the tension of the oncoming strike. But only for a moment. In a blur of motion, she sidestepped to the right, her body flowing like liquid. She raised her knee into his side as he passed, using his momentum against him. Torak grunted in surprise as the strike landed, but he quickly recovered, spinning around to face her again. Torak's strategy was simple: overwhelm her with sheer power. He would try to close the gap between them and use his massive size and strength to crush her. His every move was meant to disorient her, forcing her into a defensive position where his power would win the day. But Kara wasn't going to make it that easy. Kara leapt forward, closing the distance in a way that made Torak blink in confusion. She spun low, aiming for his legs. Her blade hummed as she struck her foot, connecting with his knee joint. He staggered slightly, his massive frame wobbling. He wasn't used to being struck in such a vulnerable area. He roared in pain, but Kara wasn't about to give him time to recover. She continued her assault, her movements a blur of controlled fury. The crowd above them murmured in shock. Kara was faster than they had anticipated, and her strikes, though precise, were enough to make Torak's size seem like a disadvantage. The fight wasn't supposed to be this close. The Varkan Dominion's reputation was built on strength, and Kara was challenging that perception. Lucian Greystone, standing at the periphery of the arena, watched the fight unfold with quiet intensity. His expression was one of careful observation. He knew Kara knew how her mind worked. She wasn't just relying on her combat skills, she was testing her opponent, understanding his movements, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. "Stay calm," Lucian murmured to himself, his eyes tracking every move on the battlefield. Let her execute the plan. Lucian's role was not to fight, but to provide strategic insight and support. He had been the one to help Kara prepare for the different combat scenarios she might face. His mind was working, analyzing the battle from every angle. He knew that winning this trial wasn't just about defeating Torak. It was about proving Earth's resilience and intellect, about showing the galaxy that humanity was not just a newcomer to the galactic stage, but a force to be reckoned with. Back in the arena, Kara's blade sang through the air as it connected with Torak's armored shoulder. He staggered, clearly frustrated now. Kara could see the shift in his demeanor. The arrogance was gone, replaced with a fury that only made him more reckless. His attacks were becoming sloppier, his movements slower. He was losing focus. Kara didn't hesitate. She was all business now. She took advantage of his hesitation, dodging to the side, and using his own weight against him once more. She kicked his lower back, sending him stumbling forward, and with one final well-timed strike, she embedded her energy blade into the vulnerable area beneath his armor, right at his chest. The arena fell silent as Torak collapsed to his knees, gasping for air. His large frame hit the ground with a thud, sending a tremor through the platform. Kara stood above him, her expression still calm. She didn't revel in the victory. There was no time for that. Her heart was still pounding, and her breath came in shallow bursts. But the battle was over. She had won. The sound of Torak's defeat echoed through the chamber, and the council members looked on with wide eyes. Kara had done it. But what would the aftermath be? The Varkan Dominion, a powerful empire known for its brutal warriors, had just been defeated by a human. Lucian stepped forward, his voice low and steady. "Good work, Kara. But don't get too comfortable." Kara nodded, wiping the sweat from her brow. "This isn't over." The crowd erupted into murmurs. Some were shocked by the outcome. Others were already assessing the political ramifications of what had just transpired. Earth had sent a message, but it wasn't one the galaxy was ready to hear. The council members, however, were far from impressed. Some exchanged glances, their skepticism evident. Earth's victory might have been impressive, but it had also raised questions. The Varkan Dominion had been caught off guard by the strength and speed of a human, and now the question lingered. Was Earth a force to be reckoned with, or had they just gotten lucky? Kara's victory, though earned, had only raised the stakes. The real battle for Earth's place in the Alliance was just beginning. Lucian watched as the alien representatives whispered among themselves. He knew what was coming next. They would question Earth's motives, its abilities. They would demand more from them, test them further. This victory was just the beginning of a much larger struggle. Earth had proven that they were not weak, but they had yet to prove that they were more than just a novelty in a galaxy full of powerful empires. Kara's gaze shifted back to Lucian. What now? Lucian's response was simple, but his eyes gleamed with determination. Now we prepare for the next phase. This is just the beginning, Kara. The first test had been won, but the war for Earth's future had only just begun. Kara Drake stood at the command center of Earth's military base, her gaze locked onto the holographic map in front of her. The flickering lights illuminated her face, casting sharp shadows that reflected her internal focus. Her hands were clenched behind her back, the fingers steady, but there was an intensity in her posture, as though she were already in battle. The soft hum of machinery and the occasional beeping of consoles surrounded her, but the space felt empty, an isolated bubble where her thoughts could thrive in the quiet. Her expression was cold, unwavering, the same look she wore on the battlefield. Kara had built her reputation as a warrior, not just on her physical prowess, but on the sharpness of her mind. She didn't show emotion, didn't indulge in camaraderie. She had a job to do, and that was all that mattered. The Earth's future depended on her, and she wouldn't let anything distract her. Lucian Greystone, standing a few steps away, observed her with a subtle frown. His tall, composed form contrasted with Kara's no-nonsense stance. Lucian had always been the diplomatic one, the calm strategist. His intelligence was vast, but his understanding of human emotion was still something he wrestled with. Kara's stoic nature both intrigued and frustrated him. Kara, Lucian began, his voice measured. You've been working non-stop for the past 48 hours. We need your input on the next phase. We can't afford to lose momentum now. Kara's eyes flicked to Lucian, but her gaze didn't soften. I'm fine. What's the situation? Her voice was flat, devoid of fatigue or emotion. Lucian studied her for a moment, the slight edge of concern creeping into his features. He knew she wasn't just physically exhausted. Her coldness had begun to bleed into their strategy sessions, creating a chasm between them that neither could ignore. She was a brilliant tactician, yes, but her inability to connect emotionally was becoming more evident. There's been some resistance among the other empires. Lucian continued, his brow furrowed. They're not sure about Earth's place in the Alliance. We need a plan that doesn't just focus on brute force. We need something more subtle. Kara's lips twitched into the briefest of smiles, almost imperceptible. Subtlety is overrated, but we'll see. Her tone suggested she wasn't overly concerned. She was a warrior, not a diplomat, and that was the way she saw it. Lucian let out a breath, his frustration momentarily visible, before he masked it with his usual calm. The Varkan might respect strength, but not every empire does. We'll need to think beyond the battlefield. Kara nodded stiffly, her eyes narrowing as she mentally processed the information. She had been trained for battle, for combat, not for negotiation or diplomacy. Her mind worked quickly, already moving past Lucian's words to the potential strategies she could apply on the front lines. The discussions were a necessary distraction, but they weren't her priority. Do we have the updated data on the Zatar Empire? Kara asked, her voice crisp. She was already in combat mode, every question leading to the next phase of her preparation. Lucian nodded and brought up a new map, this one showing the territories controlled by the Zatar. Their military strategy was one of surprise and overwhelming force, much like the Varkan. They've been using stealth tactics, moving in and out of positions undetected. It's a challenge for our sensors. Kara's lips pressed into a thin line. She didn't speak immediately, but her mind began working. The challenge was clear: how to deal with an empire that relied on subtlety, the very thing that Kara had little patience for. Still, she could adapt. Her focus was unwavering, but there was something Lucian wasn't seeing, something about her tactics that he didn't understand. Kara turned toward the table, her fingers moving across the screen, tracing the map with deliberate precision. We'll need to counter their stealth with a strategy of controlled chaos, she muttered to herself more than to Lucian. Her eyes flicked over the map's coordinates. She would take advantage of Earth's superior technology and guerrilla tactics, quick, unpredictable, and lethal. Lucian watched, his interest piqued, but he could see the divide in their approaches. His method was to outthink their enemies, relying on negotiation, diplomacy, and superior understanding of alien cultures. Kara, on the other hand, saw the battlefield as a place where the strongest survived, and right now that meant adapting and defeating every single threat with overwhelming force. But Lucian had a point. Kara's approach, while effective, would alienate their potential allies. The other empires were not looking for another war. They had seen enough destruction. They needed a solution that wasn't just about dominating their foes, but about building trust and ensuring long-term stability. I understand your plan, Kara, Lucian said, his voice more contemplative now, but we can't simply fight our way through every issue. Earth needs to be seen as a leader, not just a fighter. You're a warrior, but you're also representing Earth's future. You need to think about that. Kara's face remained expressionless, but she could feel the shift in Lucian's tone. His words were becoming sharper, more critical. She wasn't used to that. She wasn't used to being questioned, least of all by him. Lucian had always been her trusted advisor, but this was different. His desire for diplomacy was at odds with her nature. She had never cared about alliances, only the mission. The mission is to secure Earth's place, Kara said firmly, her voice unwavering. We can negotiate later. If we don't secure our strength, there's nothing to negotiate. Lucian sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. I get it, but if we only focus on fighting, we risk pushing everyone away. The other empires are watching. We can't be seen as just conquerors. For a moment, Kara was silent. She was always the one doing the fighting, the one carrying the weight of the decisions made at the table. But Lucian was right about one thing: Earth needed more than just warriors. It needed tacticians, negotiators, and leaders who could see the bigger picture. Could she be that leader? Could she ever be more than just the soldier she had trained to be? Her cold exterior was a defense mechanism, a way of protecting herself from the chaos around her. But perhaps, just perhaps, Lucian was offering her a new perspective. Maybe there was a place for her in this world beyond the battlefield. I'll consider it, Kara said, finally breaking her silence. But we move forward with the plan. We don't back down. Lucian gave a small nod, understanding that Kara's decision had already been made. They were allies, yes, but their approaches would always be different. The question remained, could they find a way to work together despite their differences? As the conversation shifted back to the practical matters of Earth's position in the alliance. Kara's mind wandered for a moment. She had the skills, the strength, and the will to lead, but the question of leadership, true leadership, was still something she was learning. This was more than just a fight. It was the beginning of a new kind of battle, one that would test not only her strength, but her ability to adapt and grow beyond what she had always known. Lucian watched her, his thoughts mirroring hers. Together they were Earth's best chance, but only if they could find common ground. The strategy room aboard Earth's flagship, the Ascendant, was alive with data streams, tactical diagrams, and the hum of anticipation. Kara Drake stood at the center of the room, her eyes scanning the holographic projections that floated in midair. Around her, the officers of Earth's military command were focused, their fingers flying over control panels, inputting new data into the system as it updated in real time. Lucian Greystone stood off to the side, his arms crossed, watching as Kara interacted with the holographic map. His mind was always several steps ahead, constantly analyzing the possible outcomes, the variables that could shift the balance in Earth's favor. Today they were experimenting with new strategies, the key to proving that Earth was not just a brute force to be reckoned with, but a strategic power capable of outsmarting its galactic counterparts. I've reviewed the Zatar Empire's military tactics, Kara said, tapping on the projection, zooming in on a cluster of marked coordinates. The Zatars were known for their stealth, their ability to strike without warning, and their overwhelming firepower once they did. They rely heavily on ambushes and surprise attacks. We're going to flip the script on them. Lucian raised an eyebrow, intrigued. What do you propose? Kara's lips curled into the faintest of smiles, the first time in days that Lucian saw a hint of her usual confidence. Instead of relying on overwhelming force, we hit them with unpredictability. A series of small, rapid assaults across multiple fronts. Create chaos. Make them react to us, not the other way around. Lucian considered the plan. Earth had always relied on its military strength on soldiers like Kara, who could face any threat head-on. But the Zatar Empire and others had developed tactics that were difficult to counter with brute strength alone. What Kara proposed was unconventional, even risky, but it might just give Earth the upper hand. But will it work? Lucian asked, his voice betraying a trace of doubt. The other empires will notice our shift in strategy. They might see it as a sign of weakness. Kara turned her head slightly, her eyes narrowing. The other empires may see it as weakness, but I'm not concerned with their opinions. We can't just fight the way they expect us to. We have to show them that Earth thinks differently, moves differently. Lucian wasn't convinced. And you're confident that a series of small attacks will be enough to counter the Zatter's strength and stealth? Kara's voice was steady, her focus laser sharp. The Zatters rely too much on their secrecy. We disrupt their communications, hit them where they're unprepared. They're a proud race, and their overconfidence will be their downfall. Her hands moved swiftly over the control panels, adjusting the strategy. The holographic map shifted as Kara initiated the first phase of their new approach. It was a daring plan, one that would test the resolve of the entire fleet. Lucian couldn't help but admire Kara's determination. She wasn't just relying on her combat skills. She was evolving, adapting, and thinking beyond the battlefield. The question, however, remained, would the other empires notice this change and question Earth's place in the alliance? The trial began soon after, and Earth's forces put Kara's plan into motion. On the distant world of Galvanus, the first move was made. Kara, along with a small strike force, launched a series of surprise attacks on Kizatar outposts, small rapid strikes that took the enemy by surprise. The idea was to disorient the Zatars, to break their ability to regroup and retaliate. As expected, the Zatars responded quickly, pulling forces together and launching a counteroffensive. But Kara's tactic of unpredictability threw them off balance. The Zatars, with their reliance on stealth and precision, found themselves outgunned in the chaos. Earth's forces, though smaller in number, were using their knowledge of the terrain and their enemies' weaknesses to stay one step ahead. Meanwhile, in the observation room aboard the Ascendant, Lucian watched the strategy unfold. His fingers hovered over the console, tracking each move, monitoring the Zatars' reactions. The holographic projection flickered, showing the fluctuating results of the skirmishes. Kara's strategy was working, at least for now. He leaned in closer to one of the officers, speaking in a low voice. Keep monitoring the other empires. I want to know if they've picked up on our movements. The officer nodded and adjusted the parameters, bringing up live transmissions from various galactic factions. There was a murmur of concern from the officer moments later. The Varkan Dominion is already watching, sir. They've noticed the change in tactics. Lucian's brow furrowed. What's their response? The officer hesitated, tapping a few keys. They're not happy. They've requested a meeting with us, concerned about Earth's approach. Lucian exhaled slowly, a touch of frustration creeping into his calm demeanor. This was inevitable. The other empires are watching us closely. We need to show them that we're capable of more than just brute force, but we also need to stay strong. Back in the battlefield, Kara was leading her team through another coordinated strike. They had moved quickly from one target to the next, but something had changed. The Zatars were starting to adapt their movements, becoming more precise. Kara narrowed her eyes, analyzing the situation. This wasn't going to be as easy as it seemed. Focus on the supply lines, she ordered, her voice sharp through the comms. We've disrupted their comms for now, but we need to hit their logistics before they regroup. No mercy. Her team acknowledged each member, moving with calculated precision. Kara didn't wait for them to catch up. She moved like a shadow, her every step deliberate and purposeful. She knew the Zatars would eventually figure out her strategy, and when they did, it would be up to her to stay ahead of them. Then, as she took cover behind a rock formation, Kara's eyes widened as a shadow loomed over her. She could feel it before she saw it: Torak. This time, Torak was different. He had adapted to her strategy, recognizing that brute strength wouldn't win this fight. Instead, he used the terrain to his advantage, setting traps and laying ambushes. He had learned from their last encounter. Kara's jaw tightened, but she didn't hesitate. She could already feel the familiar rush of adrenaline. Her hand slid to her side, drawing her blade. She needed to be smarter than she had been before. This fight would test more than her strength. As Torak stepped into view, his movements were slower, more deliberate. His eyes locked on hers, a smirk on his face. You've changed, Kara. I see you've learned something new. She met his gaze, her face unwavering. We all have something to learn. The tension in the air was palpable, and Kara knew this battle would be different. She wasn't just fighting for survival this time. She was fighting for Earth's future in the Alliance. The stakes were higher than ever. Torak lunged first, his massive fist flying toward her. But Kara was already in motion, her body twisting as she dodged to the side. She had learned from the last time this was about movement, not just power. As Torak's fist slammed into the ground, sending rocks flying, Kara swiftly moved behind him. This time she was the one on the offensive. She struck at his back, finding the weak spot in his armor that had failed him in their previous encounter. Torak grunted in pain, but his grin didn't fade. He knew this was only a test, one that he would win eventually. But Kara wasn't just going to make it easy for him. The battle was far from over. And with each strike, Kara learned more about herself and more about her enemies. As the fight raged on, the political pressure from the Alliance continued to mount. Kara and Lucian knew that this was not just a military battle. It was a political one, too. Every move Earth made was being scrutinized, and the pressure was only going to increase. In the coming days, Earth would have to prove its worth, not just through force, but through strategy and diplomacy. The question remained, would the Alliance accept Earth as an equal, or would they view the planet as a threat to the established order? For now, though, Kara had one task ahead of her: to defeat Torak once and for all. Kara Drake stood on the observation deck of the Ascendant, watching the stars streak by as the ship moved through hyperspace. Her mind, however, was far from the peaceful view outside. The mission that had started as a simple test of strength was now taking on a far darker meaning. The more she thought about it, the more it became clear Earth was not simply trying to prove its worth in the galaxy. It was testing the other empires for a far more ominous purpose: assimilation. Kara's eyes narrowed as the realization hit her. Earth's growing power, the rapid advancements in military technology, the tactics she had been developing, it all pointed to one thing. Earth wasn't just looking to join the Alliance. It was planning to dominate it. The Council's trials, the combat tests, and even the political pressure Earth had been placing on the other empires were all part of a larger strategy. Kara had been trained to think in terms of combat and strategy, and now she saw the bigger picture. Earth was testing these empires not just for alliances, but to assess their potential for eventual conquest. Her thoughts were interrupted by the low hum of the ship's communication system coming to life. Lucian Greystone's voice came through her earpiece, his tone steady, but with a hint of urgency. "Kara, we need you on the bridge immediately. There's something you need to see." She didn't hesitate. Kara knew that if Lucian called for her, it wasn't just a routine briefing. As she moved swiftly down the corridors of the Ascendant, her mind raced with the implications of her realization. If what she suspected was true, it would change everything. Earth's future was now entangled in a web of deceit, and there was no turning back. Upon arriving at the bridge, she found Lucian standing by the command console, his expression unreadable. Several high-ranking officers were present, all silent, waiting for her to speak. Lucian gestured to the holographic display, which was showing live transmissions from the Alliance Council. "We've intercepted several communications from the Zatar and Varkan empires. They've been discussing our military strategies, and they've begun to question Earth's true intentions. They think we're not just joining the Alliance, they think we're planning to take it over." Kara's jaw tightened as the words settled in her mind. She had been right. "What did they say exactly?" Her voice was cold, almost emotionless, but her eyes were sharp. Lucian leaned closer to the console, his fingers moving over the data. "The Zatar are the first to express concern. They believe we're conducting reconnaissance, sizing up their defenses to prepare for a potential strike. The Varkan aren't much better. They suspect that we've been testing their strength in order to dominate them." He paused, his voice lowering. "They're afraid." Kara stood motionless for a moment, absorbing the weight of the news. "They're not wrong," she said quietly. "That's exactly what we're doing. We're testing them. We're seeing who can stand up to Earth's might." Lucian looked at her, his eyes filled with a mix of disbelief and concern. "Kara, is that what you really think? Are we really just testing them for conquest?" Kara's gaze remained fixed on the hologram, her face unreadable. "I don't know what we're doing anymore, Lucian, but it seems like Earth is building an empire one piece at a time. We've been preparing for war, but not just to join the Alliance. We're building the infrastructure to rule it." Lucian shook his head slowly. If the other empires think we're planning conquest, it'll lead to war. They'll band together to stop us, and we'll be caught in the middle. Kara's eyes flicked over to him, her voice low but firm. Then let them come. We're not here to play politics. We're here to win. Lucian's face hardened. He could see the fire in Kara's eyes, the same fire that had made her such an invaluable asset to Earth's military. But he also knew that this could spiral out of control. This isn't just about fighting Kara. If the other empires unite against us, we could lose everything. Kara didn't respond immediately. She knew that Lucian was right. War with the other empires could devastate Earth's position, but her sense of duty to Earth's survival was unwavering. If the galaxy would fight against Earth's rise, then Earth would fight back. But this wasn't a decision she could make alone. She needed to see the bigger picture, how the entire galactic community would react. The communication system buzzed again, breaking her thoughts. The Varkan Dominion had sent a message. Lucian activated it and Torak's face appeared on the screen, his expression grim. Kara Drake. Torak's deep voice echoed from the speaker. You have stirred a dangerous path. Earth's intentions are no longer in question. We know what you seek, and if you believe you can rule this galaxy, you will face consequences. Kara's eyes narrowed as Torak's words struck a chord with her. The Varkan were not a race that took threats lightly, and she knew that this was more than just a diplomatic warning. It was a challenge, a call to arms. The Varkan were already preparing for war. Lucian's voice broke through her thoughts. Kara, if we go to war now, we risk isolating Earth. The other empires will unite against us. Kara's gaze never left the screen. She knew that Lucian was right, but her mind was already in battle mode. The stakes were too high. Earth couldn't back down now. Then we'll fight, she said, her voice filled with unshakable resolve. We'll show them that Earth isn't a place to be ignored. Lucian looked at her, his brow furrowing. You're ready to start a war? Kara turned toward him, her expression hard. I'm not starting a war. Earth is. And if the empires want to stop us, they'll have to do it with force. But Earth will fight to the end. The silence that followed was thick with tension. Lucian could see the fire in Kara's eyes, and for the first time he wasn't sure if he agreed with her. But he knew that the next steps were crucial. Earth was on the brink of something far greater than just a war. The future of the galaxy was hanging in the balance. As the room fell quiet, Kara's voice broke through the stillness. Prepare the fleet. We don't have time to waste. Let's show them what Earth is made of. The galaxy was about to erupt into chaos. The other empires, now aware of Earth's intentions, would no longer sit idly by. The Zatars, the Varkan, and every other race in the Alliance would have to decide, would they face Earth head-on, or would they bow to its growing power? Kara had made her choice. Earth would not be a passive player in the galactic drama. Earth would take its place as a dominant force, and the war would be the price. Kara stood in the dimly lit war room aboard the Ascendant, her sharp gaze locked on the large holographic display. The once familiar map of Earth's military operations now felt different. It had grown more intricate, more insidious. The plan that had unfolded before her over the last few days was not just a test of strength or a play for political power. No, this was something much darker. Lucian Greystone stood next to her, his arms folded across his chest, his expression as controlled as ever. But his eyes betrayed his thoughts, flicking from the map to Kara, waiting for her reaction. Kara's hand hovered over the console, her fingers trembling just slightly. She had just discovered the truth. Earth wasn't merely entering the galactic fold with ambitions of cooperation or diplomacy. No, Earth was quietly laying the groundwork for an empire, a plan to dominate the other empires and take control of the Alliance. The so-called Common Management Alliance wasn't about unifying disparate systems. It was about Earth becoming the sole power, and that power would be enforced by military might. Lucian, Kara's voice broke the silence, cold and measured. Is this what we're really doing? Testing them to see if they're strong enough to join us? Or if we can take them? Lucian didn't flinch. Yes, Kara. Earth needs to secure its place. The other empires, while powerful, are fractured. They need someone to unify them. We can offer that, but only if we prove ourselves as the dominant force. Kara's jaw clenched, her mind racing. This was not what she had signed up for. She had always believed in Earth's strength, its right to defend itself. But this was a different beast entirely. The cold, calculating nature of the plan sent a chill through her. She wasn't naive. She had seen the signs, the subtle push toward aggression, but the full realization that Earth was positioning itself as an emperor rather than a member made her question everything. She turned away from the display, her fists clenched at her sides. You think we can just control them all? The Zatars, the Varkan, the others, they won't bend to our will. They'll resist. Lucian's voice was calm, almost too calm. The resistance is expected, Kara. That's why we're testing them now. We need to understand their strengths, their weaknesses. If they can't stand against us, then they'll fall into line. If they resist too strongly, we'll crush them. Kara's mind flashed back to her encounter with Torak. The Varkan were relentless warriors, proud and strong, and the idea of reducing them to pawns in Earth's quest for power unsettled her. She had no doubt that Earth could conquer them. But did they have to? Couldn't there be another way? And what about the rest of the Alliance? She asked, her voice rising with frustration. Will we wipe out every race that stands in our way? What about the peace we're supposed to be striving for? Lucian's gaze hardened. Peace is a luxury we can't afford, Kara. The galaxy is fragmented. The only way we're going to ensure Earth's survival is by taking control. Once we do, we can establish peace on our terms. The weak will fall, and the strong will join us. Kara's heart sank. The weight of the decision was heavy on her. This wasn't just about military tactics or strategy anymore. This was about morality, about whether she could justify the bloodshed that would follow. Could she live with herself if she helped Earth subjugate the galaxy? The days that followed were filled with strategy sessions and military drills. Kara, along with the fleet commanders, began to test Earth's new tactics, all designed for one purpose: dominance. The military approach was relentless and methodical. Earth's forces began moving through strategic sectors, attacking key outposts of the Zatars and the Varkan, not to crush them entirely, but to break them down piece by piece. Kara led the charge on multiple fronts, her battle tactics shifting from defense to offense, from holding ground to forcing the enemy to retreat. It was a new kind of warfare, one that balanced precision with overwhelming force. And it worked. The Zatar Empire's reliance on stealth couldn't hold up against Earth's superior technology and the sheer unpredictability of their strikes. But Kara wasn't sure how long this strategy would last. The other empires were watching. She could feel their eyes on Earth, their suspicion growing by the day. And with each victory, Earth's reputation as a conqueror was cemented further. But there was no turning back. As the Zatars fell back, their strongholds crumbling under Earth's relentless pressure, the other empires began to take notice. The message was clear. Earth was not just joining the Alliance, it was setting the terms. The Council of the Alliance called an emergency session. The representatives of the various empires gathered on the observation deck, their faces grim as the hollow communications came to life. The message was from the Zatars, and it was a direct accusation. We have been testing the strength of your forces. The Zatar representative growled, his voice filled with resentment. And we have seen the truth. Earth seeks to rule us all. It is not about unity, it is about domination. The other representatives, including the Varkan and the Cathari, exchanged looks of suspicion and distrust. Kara could feel the tension in the room as she stood behind Lucian, silently watching the unraveling of the fragile peace they had once hoped to build. Your plan has been exposed, Earth. The Cathari representative stated, his voice heavy with authority. You will either submit to the Alliance's peace, or you will face a unified front. We will not stand by as you attempt to impose your will upon the galaxy. Kara felt her stomach tighten. It was happening. The Alliance was beginning to unite, but not in the way they had hoped. It wasn't to welcome Earth. It was to defend against it. The galaxy's empires were gearing up for war, not peace. Lucian remained calm, his diplomatic training evident, as he responded. The choice is not yours to make, he said with a cold smile. Earth's future is secured. Either you accept our terms or face the consequences. We will not back down. Kara's hand clenched into a fist at her side. The decision had already been made. Earth would not negotiate. But what of her? Where did she stand in this war? She had always been loyal to Earth, to its survival, but now, could she justify the actions that were being taken? Was she simply a tool of a much darker plan? As the war escalated, Kara found herself torn. Every battle won made Earth's grip on the galaxy stronger, but it also pulled her deeper into a conflict she wasn't sure she believed in anymore. The Zatars, the Varkan, the Cathari, they were not the enemy. They were all part of the galaxy just as Earth was. She had fought beside them alongside warriors like Torak, and now Earth was tearing them down. Kara knew what she had to do. She had to make a choice: stand by the mission and help Earth conquer the galaxy, or stand up against what was happening, risking everything to protect the future of not just Earth, but the galaxy itself. She could no longer deny the truth. Earth had set its course toward domination, and she had to decide if she would follow it into the fire or step away before it was too late. Kara took a deep breath, her mind made up. She would fight, but for humanity's future, not for conquest. She would find a way to stop Earth's march toward tyranny, even if it meant standing against Lucian, against everything she had been trained to protect. The war was just beginning, and for Kara, the real battle would be the one for Earth's soul. Kara stood on the observation deck of the Ascendant, her gaze fixed on the stars stretching endlessly beyond the ship's transparent hull. The quiet hum of the engines seemed distant, almost non-existent. It was a stark contrast to the storm of emotions and thoughts swirling inside her. The decision that had been made was final, and now Earth was ready to present its proposition to the galaxy. The time had come to propose the Common Management Alliance, a political move that would forever change the galaxy's balance of power. She could feel the weight of the moment pressing against her chest. After weeks of mounting tensions and military successes, Earth had finally made its move to unite the galaxy under its leadership. The notion of peace was on the table, but it was a peace that had one condition: Earth would be the controlling force. Lucian Greystone entered the observation deck, his presence as calculated and composed as ever. He didn't need to speak for Kara to know what was coming. The diplomatic channels were already open, and the final proposal had been sent to the Council. Their next move was to wait, but the waiting was almost unbearable. She could feel the undercurrent of the growing animosity between Earth and the rest of the galaxy. Every step they took now would be crucial. "Lucian, do you think they'll accept this proposal?" Kara asked, her voice betraying the uncertainty she had been trying to hide. She had seen the fear and resistance in the eyes of the other empires, as Earth's military actions made it clear that humanity was not just interested in joining the alliance, but controlling it. Lucian turned to face her, his face unreadable, but his voice calm and steady. "I believe we have no choice but to present it now. The alternative is a galaxy-wide conflict. This alliance with Earth at the helm is the only way forward." Kara wasn't so sure. The idea of Earth becoming the sole power of the galaxy was not something she could easily accept. She had always fought for survival, for the protection of her people. But now Earth's strength was being used as a weapon to assert dominance, and that weapon was aimed at the heart of every other empire in the galaxy. Lucian continued, his gaze intense. "This is about survival, Kara. Earth's place in the galaxy is no longer up for debate. If we don't take control, someone else will." Kara's eyes narrowed as she looked out into the stars. The future she had envisioned, one of unity and cooperation, was slipping away, replaced by something much darker. The proposal for the Common Management Alliance would undoubtedly change the galaxy forever, and Earth's rise to power would either be accepted or forcefully imposed. In the Grand Chamber of the Alliance Council, representatives from every major empire gathered, their faces tense as they waited for Earth's response. Kara and Lucian stood at the forefront, preparing to present their proposal. The room was filled with murmurs and the occasional sharp exchange of words. It was clear that no one was eager to hear what Earth had to offer. The tension was palpable, the air thick with suspicion. Lucian raised his hand, commanding silence. His voice rang out smooth and authoritative as he addressed the council. "Esteemed representatives of the Galactic Empire's Earth has witnessed the growing chaos in the galaxy, the division between our peoples. It is clear that the time for petty rivalries has passed. Earth proposes a solution: the formation of the Common Management Alliance, where we can work together under one unified leadership to ensure peace and prosperity for all." There was an immediate stir in the room. The Zatar representative, a tall, imposing figure, stood up, his voice cutting through the murmurs. "You speak of peace, but your actions show nothing of the sort. Earth's military campaigns have left a trail of destruction in their wake. How can we trust that you seek peace when you have tested us with warfare?" Lucian's response was calm, but the steel in his words was unmistakable. Peace is not without its cost, but it is the only way forward. Earth offers you leadership, not subjugation. Under our guidance, the galaxy will have stability. The Varkan representative Torax Superior stood next, his voice booming with disdain. Stability. Under Earth's rule, the Varkan will never bow to Earth's so-called peace. We will not allow our people to be governed by a single power. This is not peace. It is empire building. Kara's gaze hardened as she stepped forward, the tension in the room escalating. Her voice was steady but filled with a raw edge. The truth is, we have already seen what your kind can do with power. The galaxy is fractured, divided by your petty squabbles. Earth has the strength to unify it, to bring order to the chaos you've created. If you choose to fight, then fight. But know this: Earth will not back down. There was a moment of stunned silence before the Ketharai representative, a sleek and angular figure, spoke up, his voice laced with cautious skepticism. You claim unity, Earth. But this is not unity. This is domination. You offer no alternative to your vision of peace. And we, the Cathari, will not bow to your rule. Kara's heart raced, but she didn't let it show. She had expected this kind of resistance, but the words still stung. She turned to Lucian, her mind racing as she tried to anticipate the next move. Would they stand their ground, or would Earth be forced to compromise? Lucian's voice broke the silence, calm but unwavering. We are offering a future where all empires have a place under the banner of Earth. The terms may not be ideal, but it is the only way to prevent a galaxy-wide war. We ask you to consider the long-term benefits of such an alliance. Kara watched the representatives closely, noting the subtle shifts in their expressions. They were resistant, yes, but the seed of doubt had been planted. The idea of a unified galaxy was an alluring one, even if the price of admission was high. Earth's leadership, Lucian continued, will not be without oversight, but it will be guided by the goal of creating lasting peace, stability, and prosperity. Together we can create a future that benefits all, or we can continue down this path of endless war. One by one, the representatives exchanged glances. The debate raged on, but Kara could see the hesitation in their eyes. They didn't want Earth to rule them, but neither could they afford the endless conflict that threatened to tear the galaxy apart. As the council session came to a close, the representatives were given time to deliberate. Kara and Lucian returned to the Ascendant, the weight of the decision now pressing even harder upon them. Do you think they'll accept it? Kara asked the question, hanging heavy in the air. She had heard their objections, their arguments, but deep down she wasn't sure Earth had given them any real choice. Lucian's voice was quiet but resolute. They will. They have no other option. We've shown them Earth's power, and now we will offer them the chance to join us. The question is, will they accept that peace, or will they resist? Kara turned away from him, her thoughts clouded with uncertainty. Was this the right path for Earth? Was there another way to achieve peace without forcing it upon the galaxy? But as the ship flew through the stars, she realized that the course had already been set. Earth was not just a participant in the galaxy anymore. It was the one shaping its future. And in that future, Earth would not be a passive player. It would be the one in control. The battlefield was still smoldering from the last clash. The faint scent of burning debris lingered in the air as Kara stood at the edge of the ruined stronghold, her eyes scanning the horizon. Her battlesuit was battered, but her resolve was unshaken. She had fought Torak before, defeated him once, but she could feel the weight of their next encounter. He was coming for her again, and this time things felt different. From the smoke, Torak emerged, his towering figure unmistakable. His armor was dented from their last fight, but his gait was confident, his massive frame moving with the power of a predator. As always, his tusks gleamed in the harsh light, and his yellow eyes locked onto Kara with the intensity of a hunter closing in on its prey. Their eyes met, and for a moment the tension in the air was palpable. There was no need for words, only the unspoken understanding between two warriors who had clashed before. This time, however, there was something more in the way Torak studied her. It wasn't just the arrogance of a brute. There was a glimmer of respect. "You again, Kara Drake." Torak rumbled, his deep voice sending vibrations through the air. "I underestimated you last time, but I see now that you're more than just a human to crush." Kara stood tall, unflinching. Her expression remained as cold and focused as ever. And yet you came back for more. She replied, her voice sharp but steady. You should have known better than to challenge Earth's strength. Torak's eyes narrowed, his lips curling into a grin that was more thoughtful than mocking. You've proven yourself human, he said, his tone shifting. But I still wonder, what is it that Earth really seeks? Do you think you can rule us all? Or is there more to your people's desire? Kara's mind raced. She had always fought for Earth's survival, for its right to defend itself. But now, faced with Torak's questions, doubts began to creep in. Was Earth simply seeking power? Was there a way to show the galaxy that Earth was not just a conqueror, but something more? Survival, Kara replied after a long pause. Survival is the goal, but power is what it takes to achieve it. If that means showing strength, then so be it. Torak's expression shifted again, his eyes reflecting something deeper, perhaps understanding. Survival. I can respect that, he muttered, but power alone does not bring peace. Human. It only breeds more conflict. Kara felt a flicker of something unfamiliar in her chest, a feeling she couldn't quite place. She had never questioned Earth's methods before, but now in this moment, standing before a formidable foe who shared similar convictions, she couldn't help but wonder, was Torak right? Was there a way for Earth to thrive without crushing everyone in its path? You speak of peace, Kara said, her voice softening slightly. But what choice do we have? Peace isn't given. It's taken. We've seen what happens when the strong do not fight to protect what they've built. Torak's gaze softened ever so slightly, the hardened warrior mask he wore cracking for a moment. Perhaps, he said quietly, but there is a fine line between protecting what you love and destroying everything else. Kara stood still, contemplating his words. She had always been a soldier, a warrior, but now she realized that the path ahead wasn't just about winning battles. It was about understanding the consequences of those victories. Torak, in his own way, was trying to tell her that. Maybe we are not so different, Kara said, her voice steady now, her resolve solidifying. We both fight for our people, for our survival, but the way we fight, it could make all the difference. Torak didn't answer immediately. He stood tall, regarding her with a strange mixture of wariness and respect. Finally, he nodded slowly. Perhaps you are right, Kara Drake. But remember, this power comes with a price. If Earth seeks to control the galaxy, it will face a war it can't win. With those words, Torak turned and strode away, disappearing into the chaos of the battlefield. Kara watched him go, her heart heavy with the weight of their exchange. The atmosphere aboard the Ascendant was heavy, filled with a tense silence as Kara stood at the command center. She had just received the latest transmissions from the Alliance Council, and they were not good. The various empires, particularly the Zatars, the Varkan, and the Cathari, had made it clear that they would not accept Earth's proposal for the Common Management Alliance. Earth's show of power had alienated them, and they were not ready to submit to a single controlling force, especially one that had already demonstrated its ability to conquer. Kara stood facing the large holographic map of the galaxy, her expression unreadable as she analyzed the reactions of the other empires. It was clear that the situation was escalating. The proposals for peace had been rejected. The threat of war loomed large, and yet Kara could not shake the thought that there might still be a way forward. A way that didn't involve more bloodshed. Lucian Greystone stood beside her, his normally composed demeanor showing signs of strain. He had been a strong advocate for the Common Management Alliance, but even he was beginning to see the cracks in the plan. This isn't working, Kara, Lucian said quietly, his voice laced with frustration. The other empires aren't going to back down. They've made their stance clear, and they're already preparing for a fight. We're running out of time. Kara turned to face him, her sharp eyes never leaving his. I know, she said, her voice low but firm, but I can't just give up. There has to be another way. Lucian studied her for a moment, as if weighing his next words carefully. What are you thinking? We've tried diplomacy, we've tried force, and neither has worked. Kara's eyes drifted back to the holographic display. She could feel the weight of Earth's future pressing down on her. If she couldn't find a way to bring the other empires into the fold, then Earth would be forced into a conflict. It wasn't ready for a conflict that could tear the galaxy apart. The thought of all those lives lost, all that destruction, made her stomach turn. Then it hit her a sudden realization, sharp as a blade. The key wasn't to force the empires into submission. It was to offer them something they wanted, something they needed. Earth had been focusing too much on the idea of domination, too obsessed with control, but the galaxy wasn't a chessboard where every piece could be manipulated. It was a collection of unique, proud civilizations, each with their own motivations. She turned back to Lucian, her eyes gleaming with a new sense of determination. We're not going to win them over through power. We need to show them that Earth can be an equal partner, not a conqueror. Lucian raised an eyebrow, clearly skeptical. How do you propose we do that? After everything that's happened, can they ever see Earth as an ally and not a threat? Kara smiled faintly. It's all about perception. We've been trying to prove our strength. Now we need to prove our value. The Zatars, the Varkan, and the Cathari, they all have something we can offer. Resources, technology, and more. What if we offer them an alternative? What if we show them that they don't need to fight for survival? What if they can join us as equals, not subjugated under Earth's rule, but as a part of a new system, one that benefits them as much as it benefits us? Lucian's expression softened as he began to understand. You're suggesting a trade, not just resources, but something more. A new economy, new alliances, new ways to thrive. Kara nodded. Exactly. If we're going to build a new galaxy, it can't just be built on military power. We need to give the other empires a stake in it. A way to grow, to prosper without the fear of being crushed under Earth's heel. Lucian took a deep breath, his mind racing. But the other empires are proud, Kara, especially the Zatars. They don't want to be told what to do. They'll never accept Earth's leadership, not if it means giving up their autonomy. Kara's eyes hardened. Then we offer them autonomy. We offer them influence, a seat at the table. Earth won't control them. We'll help them control their own destinies. It's not about domination. It's about cooperation, and we have something they need. Lucian studied her for a long moment, his gaze thoughtful. This is risky. We're asking them to trust us. After everything, can they? Kara's jaw tightened. They'll have to. We've made our mistakes, Lucian. But if we don't try this now, we risk losing everything. Earth can't survive in a galaxy that sees us as an enemy. But we can thrive in a galaxy that sees us as partners. Lucian nodded slowly, his face filled with the weight of the decision. I'll start drafting a new proposal, one that emphasizes Earth's willingness to cooperate, not dominate. We'll focus on the economic benefits, on the technology we can share. And we'll need to present it to the other empires carefully. If we do this right, it could work. Kara looked at him, her gaze unwavering. We have to do it right. If we don't, Earth might never get a second chance. The days that followed were tense, but they were also filled with action. Kara and Lucian worked tirelessly to create a new proposal, one that would emphasize cooperation over control. It was a delicate balance. They had to offer enough to lure the empires into partnership without giving up too much of Earth's power. The proposal outlined a shared economy, joint research initiatives, and a council where all the empires would have a voice with Earth, serving as the mediator, not the ruler. When the proposal was finally sent, it wasn't met with immediate applause. There were still many voices of dissent, particularly from the Zatars and the Varkan, who were unwilling to let go of their pride. But the offer had changed the tone of the discussions. The focus had shifted from domination to cooperation. The empires began to see that Earth wasn't just asking for submission, it was offering a chance for them to thrive alongside humanity. Kara stood before the council once again, her hands steady at her sides as the various representatives voiced their concerns and their hopes. It was clear that Earth's proposition had opened a door, but it was up to the other empires to walk through it. Earth's proposal, the Zatar representative began, his voice gruff, is a gamble, but perhaps it is a gamble worth taking. We are willing to consider it, but we need assurance that our autonomy will be respected. Lucian stepped forward, his voice measured but firm. We understand your concerns and we respect your sovereignty. Earth will not force you into submission. We will work together as equals to create a new future. The room was silent for a moment, the tension hanging thick in the air. Finally, the Cathari representative spoke, his voice softer than it had been before. Perhaps there is a way forward. We will give Earth's proposal due consideration. Kara breathed a quiet sigh of relief, but she knew the battle wasn't over. This was only the beginning, but for the first time there was hope. Hope that the galaxy could change, that Earth didn't have to dominate to survive. Maybe Earth could find its place not as a ruler, but as a partner. And with that thought, Kara knew that the future of the galaxy could still be rewritten. The tension aboard the Ascendant was palpable. Kara stood at the holographic map, eyes fixed on the fleet movements of the enemy. The Zatars, Varkin, and Cathari had united, forming a formidable coalition against Earth. The galaxy was on the brink of a catastrophic war, and it was clear the empires would not back down. Kara's hands were clenched at her sides, her mind racing with strategies. Lucian Greystone, Earth's diplomat and strategist, stood beside her. His face was a mask of calm, but Kara could see the strain in his eyes. He understood the stakes. If they didn't act soon, Earth would face the full wrath of a united enemy. "We've done everything we can," Kara Lucian said, his voice low but firm. "The fleets are mobilizing. If we don't act now, we'll be overrun." Kara's jaw tightened. She could feel the weight of responsibility pressing down on her. The pressure was overwhelming, but there was no time for hesitation. This was the moment that would determine Earth's future in the galaxy. If Earth wanted to survive, they needed to strike first. The empires had already rejected peace. Now it was a matter of forcing them to reconsider. "We can't wait for them to come to us," Kara said, her voice cold with resolve. "We need to strike first before they can organize." Lucian nodded, already understanding. "A preemptive strike. But we need to hit them where it hurts. They're already expecting a fight." Kara's mind raced. "We won't fight them head on. We'll use their overconfidence against them." "I have a plan." Her plan was daring and risky. Earth's fleet had the advantage of advanced cloaking technology. Kara's strategy was to create a diversion, a decoy fleet that would draw the enemy's attention while Earth's main fleet moved into position undetected. The goal wasn't to destroy the enemy's fleet, but to cripple their ability to coordinate and force them to reconsider their aggression. Lucian raised an eyebrow. "A decoy fleet? That's a bold move. What if they detect us?" Kara's eyes hardened. "If we execute this right, they won't even know we're there until it's too late. We'll hit their communications, their energy sources, and then vanish before they have a chance to retaliate." Lucian paused, clearly weighing the risks. "You're asking for a lot of trust, Kara. If this doesn't work, Earth will be the one under attack." "I know," Kara replied, her voice unwavering. "But if we don't take this chance, Earth's future is already lost." The decoy fleet was launched first, a small expendable force designed to draw the enemy's attention. It moved toward the Zatar-controlled space, and immediately the enemy fleet began to react. They weren't expecting a full attack, but they couldn't ignore the threat either. Their attention shifted to the decoy as planned. Kara watched the data stream, her heart pounding, as Earth's main fleet, cloaked and silent, moved into position behind the enemy lines. This was their moment. The fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. "Main fleet, execute phase 2. Kara ordered, her voice calm but filled with determination. The moment the order was given, Earth's fleet dropped its cloak. Energy cannons fired with pinpoint accuracy at critical points in the enemy ship's communication relays, reactor cores, and defensive systems. The attack was swift and precise, catching the enemy off guard. The Zatar, Varkin, and Cathari fleets scrambled to respond, but their formations were in disarray. The surprise had been complete. The enemy fleet was larger, but Earth's strength lay in its precision. The target wasn't to defeat the entire enemy force, but to strike fear into their hearts, to make them question whether fighting Earth was worth the cost. Kara knew that a prolonged war would destroy both sides, but if she could show them that Earth had the capability to cripple their forces quickly, the empires might be forced to reconsider their course. Lucian, Kara said, her voice steady despite the chaos unfolding on the battlefield. "This is our chance. We need to offer them a way out." Lucian's eyes flicked to the map, noting the disarray among the enemy. "You think they'll listen after everything?" "They don't have a choice," Kara replied. "We've shown them Earth's power, but we're not here to destroy them. We're here to show them that Earth can be the stabilizing force in this galaxy, but they need to accept it." Lucian's face remained stoic, but there was a flicker of hope in his eyes. "If this works, we might avoid full-scale war. We need to move quickly, though, before they regroup." As the battle raged on, Kara's fleet began to pull back, leaving behind the damaged enemy ships as a message. The Zatars and Varkin were disoriented, and their response was chaotic. They didn't know if Earth was planning another strike, or if their forces had simply been tested. Kara knew this was their moment to make an offer. The decoy fleet had done its job. The enemy was no longer focused on Earth's full strength. They were looking for answers. She activated the communication relay and sent a direct message to the enemy leaders. Esteemed leaders of the Zatar Varkan and Cathari empires. Kara's voice came through the speaker, calm and commanding. Earth does not seek war. We seek peace, but peace on our terms. We have the strength to end this conflict before it begins, but we also have the willingness to offer you a seat at the table to join us in creating a new future. We will not fight for domination, but we will not be denied. The response from the enemy leaders was immediate. The Zatar representative, his voice filled with frustration, responded, "You think we will bow to your terms? You think this is over?" Kara's expression remained unchanged. "I think you're realizing that continuing this fight won't lead to victory. Earth is not just a power to crush, it is a force that can bring stability to this galaxy. You can join us or you can continue this war and see everything you've built destroyed." There was a long pause. The silence felt deafening. The fate of the galaxy was hanging in the balance. Finally, the Cathari representative spoke. "Earth's strength is undeniable, but your arrogance, we will consider your offer, Kara Drake. But know this, if Earth's path is one of domination, we will resist." The transmission ended, and Kara exhaled slowly, her mind racing. The enemy was not yet ready to surrender, but the seeds of doubt had been planted. The war had not been won, but for the first time the possibility of peace felt within reach. Kara turned to Lucian, her gaze hard, but filled with a hint of hope. "We've done our part. Now we wait." Lucian nodded, his expression thoughtful. "The battle isn't over, but we may have bought Earth the time it needs. If the empires see reason, we might avoid the war. But if they don't, Kara interrupted, her voice grim, "Earth will fight to the end." For now the battlefield was silent, but the future remained uncertain. The enemy had been struck, but whether they would accept peace or plunge the galaxy into war was still up in the air. Earth had made its move, and the galaxy would either bend or break under the weight of its decision. The final confrontation was over. The battlefield, once chaotic with the sounds of conflict, now lay silent. Kara stood at the command deck of the Ascendant, watching the remnants of the enemy fleet drift in space. The Zatars, the Varkan, and the Cathari, their forces had been shattered. Earth had won, but the cost of that victory was heavy. Kara's mind raced as she reviewed the final battle in her head. It had started with the decoy fleet, a bold strategy that worked better than they had hoped. The enemy had focused its attention on the decoys, believing Earth's primary fleet would follow suit. But Kara's real fleet had been cloaked and hidden, striking from the shadows with calculated precision. The first wave of the attack had been swift, targeting key enemy systems, communication arrays, energy reactors, and defense grids. The damage had been catastrophic, but not enough to completely cripple the enemy. The second phase was the key Earth's fleet didn't press the attack further, but pulled back, leaving the Zatar's Varkan and Cathari fleets in disarray, unsure whether Earth would strike again. Lucian Greystone's voice broke through her thoughts, calm but tinged with exhaustion. "It's done. The remaining ships have retreated. The coalition's forces are scattered." Kara's face remained stone cold. "Not over yet. They'll regroup soon. We need to capitalize on this." The communication signals from the enemy were now frenzied, their leaders scrambling to understand what had happened. Earth's strike, while devastating, hadn't wiped out the enemy forces entirely. Instead, it had left them in a state of confusion, unable to coordinate their response. Kara knew this was their moment, the opportunity to force the empires into negotiation before they could regroup and mount another attack. The next phase of the plan was equally bold. Kara reached for the comms, sending a direct transmission to the Zatar, Varkan, and Cathari leaders. Their warships still loomed in space, but their confidence had been shattered. Esteemed leaders of the Zatar, Varkan, and Cathari, Kara's voice echoed across the galaxy, calm but firm. "We have shown you Earth's strength, but we do not seek annihilation. We seek a new beginning for this galaxy, one of cooperation, not conflict." The message was brief but impactful. Kara knew that the enemy empires had no choice but to listen. If they refused, they would face total destruction. If they accepted, they would join Earth in the formation of a new galactic order. There was a long silence before the response came. First the Zatars. Their representative's voice was full of bitterness, but there was a tremor in it. Earth's strength is undeniable, but we do not bow easily. We will not submit to your rule. Kara's face tightened. This isn't about submission, she responded, her voice unwavering. It's about survival. The galaxy can't continue this endless war. We offer you a chance to stand together as equals and shape the future. Next came the Cathari. Their leader's voice, usually so sharp and calculated, now carried a note of hesitation. We see the power you command, Earth, but this is not just power. This is control, and we will not bend to it. Kara leaned into the comms. Earth is offering the chance to stand as partners. We will not dominate you. We will work with you. But you must understand, if we continue down this path, there will be no winners, only destruction. The Varkan leader, Torax Superior, was the last to respond. His voice was low and dangerous. The Varkan will never kneel to Earth, but we will consider your offer carefully. If Earth truly seeks peace, we will see if your actions match your words. With the communication sent, Kara turned to Lucian. It's up to them now. We've won the battle, but the war for peace has just begun. Lucian nodded, his expression a mix of relief and concern. We've shown them what Earth is capable of, but this isn't a victory we can rest on. The empires may accept or they may resist. And if they resist, we prepare for the next phase. Kara interrupted, her tone resolute. But I believe they'll accept. They've seen the cost of war. They know the price of continuing. Days passed and the reactions from the empires came slowly. The Zatars, though still proud, began to make overtures toward peace. Their fleets were too battered to fight another round of conflict. The Varkan, ever defiant, demanded more guarantees, but they too were coming to terms with the new reality. The Cathari, pragmatic as always, accepted Earth's leadership in exchange for a seat at the table of the new galactic governance. Earth had shown that it could wield power, but it had also shown that it was willing to lead not through domination, but through cooperation. Slowly, the empires came to understand that the galaxy couldn't afford another war. Earth's leadership was not perfect, but it was a stabilizing force in a galaxy that had been on the brink of collapse for too long. The official signing of the Common Management Alliance took place aboard the Ascendant. Kara, Lucian, and the representatives of the Zatar, Varkan, and Cathari empires gathered together in the vast chamber, the weight of history hanging in the air. It was not a moment of triumph, but a moment of realization. Earth had become the leader of the galaxy, not by force, but by the necessity of peace. Kara's eyes scanned the room, watching the leaders of the other empires. They had agreed to Earth's terms, but their faces were still filled with doubt. The future was uncertain. Lucian spoke up, his voice filled with purpose. This is just the beginning. Earth is now the leader of the galaxy, but the real work starts now. We must ensure that we lead with wisdom, not strength alone. Kara's gaze softened for a moment, but the weight of their responsibility was clear. We've won the war. Now we must win their trust. As the leaders signed the final treaty, Earth's dominance was secured. But Kara knew this was only the first step. The challenges ahead would be immense. She could feel the pressure mounting to maintain Earth's leadership, to keep the peace, and to prove that Earth's strength wasn't just a weapon, but a beacon for the future of the galaxy. Earth had won, but the true battle was only just beginning. Months after the formation of the Common Management Alliance, Earth stood as the new leader of the galaxy. The once resentful empires, the Zatars, Varkan, and Cathari, had grudgingly accepted Earth's power, but peace was still fragile. Though Earth had defeated them militarily, winning their trust was another matter entirely. Kara stood before the holographic map aboard the Ascendant, eyes focused on the shifting dynamics across the galaxy. Earth was in control, but for how long? Earth's leadership was new, and the old powers hadn't forgotten their pride. The Zatars were already fortifying their borders. The Cathari, pragmatic as ever, were seeking new alliances, and the Varkan, though beaten, were far from subdued. Lucian joined Kara, concern evident in his eyes. The peace is fragile. We've won the war, but we haven't won their loyalty. They'll test us, all of them. Kara's face remained stoic. I know, but we didn't just win a war. We need to show them that Earth can provide stability without conquering them. If we don't, we'll lose everything we've gained. Despite the uneasy peace, the other empires continued to plot in the shadows. Kara and Lucian understood that Earth's victory had secured them leadership, but maintaining it would require more than just military might. Earth would need to prove that it could lead without becoming another empire. If we're not careful, Lucian said Earth's leadership might collapse under its own weight. We can't afford to push too hard. Kara nodded, understanding the delicate balance they had to strike. We lead not by force, but by cooperation. But if they push us, we'll be ready. The galaxy had changed, but how Earth navigated this new era would determine whether the peace could hold. The empires had reluctantly accepted Earth's leadership, but would they stay compliant, or would they rise against it? Only time would tell. The comms crackled, breaking the eerie silence of the command center aboard the Ascendant. Kara Drake's eyes shot to the holographic display that flickered to life, showing the unmistakable shape of an enemy fleet, and not just any fleet, but one from the Galathor Empire. The Galathor were ancient, ruthless, and they had never been part of the Common Management Alliance. Their appearance was an immediate threat, and the implications were clear. The peace Kara had fought so hard to build was now in jeopardy. Lucian Kara's voice cut through the tension in the room. Lucian Greystone, Earth's diplomatic strategist, stood at the helm, watching the incoming data with a look of grim understanding. I know, Lucian muttered, his voice tight. The Galathor are here. They've come for us. Their fleet is massive, at least 30,000 ships. We don't have that kind of firepower. Kara clenched her fists, feeling the weight of the galaxy pressing down on her. The Common Management Alliance had only just begun to stabilize, and now the first true test of Earth's leadership was about to unfold. If the Galathor succeeded in defeating the Alliance, Earth's position as the galaxy's leader would collapse in an instant. She turned to Lucian, her expression fierce. We can't let them break the Alliance. We won't let them. What do we have on our side? Lucian swiped a hand across the display, bringing up schematics of Earth's fleet and the surrounding defense systems. We have our cloaking tech as always, but they'll be expecting that. We have to be smarter than just hiding and attacking from the shadows. We need to create confusion, divide their forces, and hit their leadership. Kara's eyes narrowed. So we hit their command ships first. If we take out their leaders, the fleet will scatter. Lucian nodded, clearly in agreement, but wary of the risk. It's the best option, but it's risky. We're outnumbered and they're aggressive. If we fail, we'll lose everything. The gravity of the situation pressed on Kara's shoulders. This wasn't just about tactics. It was about survival of Earth, the Alliance, and everything they had fought for. She looked out at the stars through the ship's viewports, knowing the battle ahead would determine the fate of the galaxy. As the enemy fleet closed in, Kara stood at the command center, hands clenched, heart pounding. The Ascendant had been primed for battle, every crew member at their station, every weapon system ready to fire. She could hear the hum of the ship's engines, the quiet buzz of the comms as final orders were relayed. Earth's fleet was smaller, but it was fast, efficient, and ready to fight. Get ready, Kara, Lucian said, his voice steady, though she could hear the strain beneath it. They're coming into firing range. Kara nodded. Deploy the decoy fleet, move the cloak ships into position. The strategy was clear. The Ascendant would lead the charge with the decoy fleet drawing the Galathor's attention, while Earth's fleet would strike from the shadows. But Kara knew there was no room for error. The Galathor were known for their brutal tactics, and they wouldn't hesitate to destroy everything in their path. The decoy fleet moved forward, taking position at the outer rim of the enemy's range. Kara watched as the Galathor fleet responded, their ships adjusting their formations, preparing for what they assumed was Earth's main force. But Kara's real fleet was positioned behind, ready to move in for the kill. Now Kara commanded, her voice cutting through the chaos. Bring the main fleet in. In an instant, Earth's ships, cloaked until now, dropped their invisibility fields and opened fire. The first salvo hit the nearest Galathor command ship, sending a shockwave through the enemy formation. Explosions erupted across the battlefield as the Galathor scrambled to react. But Kara had anticipated this. The chaos was deliberate, a calculated move to strike at their leadership. Direct hit on the command ship, one of the officers reported. They're in disarray, Captain. Kara's eyes flared with intensity. Keep pushing forward, target their communications arrays and energy reactors. If we disrupt their command, the fleet will fall apart. Earth's fleet moved with precision, every ship attacking key targets. Kara's strategy was working, but she knew the Galathor wouldn't back down easily. The real challenge would be keeping their forces divided long enough to secure a victory. Lucian's voice came through the comms, strained but determined. Kara, their reinforcements are arriving. We can't hold them off forever. We need to finish this now. Kara's heart raced as she glanced at the tactical map. The Galathor's reinforcements were powerful, and they would overwhelm Earth's fleet if they didn't act quickly. We need to hit them where it hurts. Kara set her mind racing through options. Prepare to target their command flagship. It's the key to everything. If we destroy it, their forces will lose all cohesion. With grim determination, Kara locked onto the Galathor flagship. Every weapon on the Ascendant fired simultaneously, sending a barrage of energy blasts at the command ship. The battle raged on, but Earth's forces held their ground. Then a brief moment of silence, and the flagship exploded. The shock wave sent ripples through the battlefield, scattering the remaining Galathor ships. The destruction of their command ship had crippled their ability to coordinate. Kara felt a surge of triumph, but she knew the battle wasn't over yet. Lucian, give the order, Kara said, her voice cold with resolve. We'll finish this now. Lucian's voice came back full of relief. All ships prepare to finish the job. Target their remaining fleets. The final phase of the battle began. Earth's fleet, now with the upper hand, pressed forward, systematically dismantling the remaining Galathor ships. One by one, their forces were crushed, their fleets scattered in defeat. As the last Galathor ship was destroyed, Kara allowed herself a brief moment of relief. The battle was won, but the war was far from over. The fate of the Alliance had been decided in this confrontation, but its future remained uncertain. Kara turned to Lucian, her expression hardened. We've done it, but the real test begins now. The empires are watching. We'll need to prove that this victory wasn't just about power. We'll need to show them that Earth can lead not by force, but by wisdom. Lucian nodded, his face thoughtful. This victory has solidified Earth's leadership, but it's only the first step. If we don't manage the peace, the galaxy will slip back into conflict. Kara's gaze was unwavering. We will make it work. The Alliance won't just survive, it will thrive. But we'll do it together. The galaxy had changed and Earth had emerged victorious. Kara Drake stood on the observation deck of the Ascendant, looking out into the vast expanse of space. Earth was now the leader of the Common Management Alliance, but Kara knew that their victory in battle didn't guarantee lasting peace. The Zatars, Varkan, and Cathari had accepted Earth's leadership reluctantly, and there was still much doubt among the empires. They had been forced into submission, not convinced of Earth's intentions. Lucian Greystone approached, his face weary but resolute. We've won the war, Kara, but the real test is what happens next. Can we keep the peace? Kara's gaze remained steady. We have to. Earth isn't here to dominate. We're here to unite. But they'll test us, all of them. And we'll have to prove that we can lead with wisdom, not just strength. The final meeting with the other empires took place. Kara addressed the representatives, her voice firm. Earth's leadership isn't about submission. It's about cooperation. The galaxy can't survive endless wars. We lead by example, not by force. The Zatar representative, though defeated, remained defiant. You've brought peace for now, but can you keep it? Earth's leadership won't last unless you prove it can be trusted. Kara met his gaze. We will earn that trust not by conquering, but by showing the galaxy that we can lead without forcing anyone into submission. The room was quiet as the other empires took in her words. Kara knew this peace was fragile, but it was their only chance. Earth had shown strength, but the real battle was about proving they could lead for the long term. Later, standing with Lucian, Kara knew the real challenge had only just begun. We've won the war, but the peace will take everything we have, she said quietly. Lucian nodded, his eyes thoughtful. Earth will have to prove itself every day. Kara turned to him, a steely resolve in her eyes. We will. The galaxy will see that Earth can lead not by force, but by wisdom. We'll make this peace last. With that, Earth's leadership was secured, but how long it would endure depended on their ability to build trust, not just with force, but with true cooperation. As the stars twinkled in the distance, Kara stood at the helm, gazing out into the vast unknown of space. Earth's victory had reshaped the galaxy, but she knew the road ahead would be anything but easy. The weight of leadership was heavy on her shoulders. She had fought for this peace, but maintaining it would require more than just strength. It would require understanding, cooperation, and a steady hand to guide the galaxy through its new reality. Lucian Greystone approached, his expression filled with quiet determination. We've made it this far, Kara. The future's in our hands now. Kara nodded, her gaze unwavering. We've won the war, but now we have to prove that Earth's leadership isn't just about power. We need to show the galaxy that true peace is possible. We need to build a future where all empires stand as equals, not subjugated, but united in their differences. Lucian placed a hand on her shoulder, his eyes filled with respect. I believe we can do it, Kara. Together we can lead this galaxy into a new era. Kara turned back to the stars, feeling the weight of both the responsibility and the hope that had been placed on Earth. We will, she said, her voice steady and resolute. The battle is over, but the real work begins now. It's up to us to build a galaxy that will stand united, not through fear, but through trust and cooperation. And with that, the galaxy's future was set. Earth had won, but the true test of leadership had only just begun. As Kara looked to the stars, she knew the peace they fought for was fragile, but it was theirs to protect together.